Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events shaping our world. I'm your host, Walter. Today, we're starting with a developing story that's sending shockwaves across the globe. Tensions between the United States and Iran have escalated significantly, with U.S. President Donald Trump issuing threats of military strikes against Iran. According to reports, President Trump took to his Truth Social network to warn Iran that it needs to negotiate a deal over its nuclear program, which the West believes is aimed at making an atomic bomb. The president's comments sparked a strong response from Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who vowed that Tehran would respond immediately and forcefully to any U.S. military operation. The situation has led to a significant increase in oil prices, with Brent Crude surpassing $70 per barrel for the first time since September. This surge is largely due to concerns over potential disruptions to Iran's daily oil production of 3 million barrels, as well as the risk of tanker traffic being impacted through the Strait of Hormuz, a key transit hub for energy supplies. Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly been engaged in de-escalation efforts, speaking with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian earlier this month. Meanwhile, Russian lawmakers have cautioned against escalating tensions into a full-scale war, with some officials suggesting that Moscow could play a mediating role in U.S.-Iran nuclear talks. As the situation continues to unfold, we'll be keeping a close eye on developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. It's a complex and sensitive issue with far-reaching implications for global politics, economies, and energy markets. We'll be exploring this story further and examining the potential consequences of escalating tensions between the U.S. and Iran. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the latest developments in international relations as tensions between Iran and the European Union continue to escalate. The EU has announced new sanctions against Iran, targeting individuals and entities involved in the violent crackdown on protesters and the country's support for Russia. This move comes after a brutal suppression of a nationwide protest movement earlier this month, which resulted in the deaths of thousands of people. The sanctions include members of the Iranian government, judiciary, police, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as entities responsible for internet censorship. The EU is also expected to add the IRGC to its list of terrorist organizations, a move that has been gaining momentum in recent weeks. This decision marks a significant shift in Europe's approach to Iran's leadership, with many countries now viewing the IRGC as a terrorist entity. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas emphasized that the goal of these sanctions is to send a strong signal that the violence against protesters will not be tolerated. Dutch Foreign Minister David van Wiel echoed this sentiment, stating that the bloodshed and brutality used against protesters cannot be ignored. However, some EU member states have expressed concerns that labeling the IRGC as a terrorist organization could lead to a complete breakdown in ties with Iran. Despite these concerns, the EU is moving forward with the sanctions, with France and Italy lending their support to the measure. The situation remains complex and nuanced, with many factors at play. As the situation continues to unfold, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives and approach the issue with a critical and open-minded mindset. The implications of these sanctions are far-reaching, and it will be crucial to monitor how Iran responds to this new development. Will the country continue down a path of defiance, or will it seek to engage in diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis? The world is watching, and the consequences of these actions will have significant repercussions for global stability. Welcome back to Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's show, I'd like to shift our focus to the European Union's migration policy. A recent statement from a senior European Commission official has sparked debate on the issue. Johannes Leuchner, the Deputy Director General of the European Commission's Home Affairs branch, argued that preventing irregular migrant arrivals to Europe is far cheaper than funding subsequent deportations. This comment comes amid reports of hundreds of people feared dead in the Mediterranean over recent weeks. The International Organization for Migration has raised alarm over the spate of deaths, highlighting the risks migrants take when attempting to reach Europe by irregular means. Luchner's emphasis on prevention as the most effective and cheapest way to address migration has sparked concerns about the EU's approach to asylum seekers. The European Commission has concluded 18 readmission agreements which allow for the return of migrants to their home countries. However, critics argue that these agreements can be costly and may not always ensure the safe return of individuals. Meanwhile, the EU Parliament's Civil Liberties Committee has endorsed laws that make it easier for member states to deport asylum seekers to countries they have never set foot in. The EU's migration policy is a complex issue, with different perspectives on how to balance humanitarian concerns with national security and economic interests. As the European Commission prepares to outline its 5-year strategy on migration and asylum, it remains to be seen how these competing priorities will be addressed. It's essential to consider the human impact of these policies and to approach the issue with empathy and understanding. The EU's response to migration will have far-reaching consequences for individuals, communities, and societies as a whole. As we continue to follow this story, we'll provide updates and insights to help you stay informed. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.